Hello everybody, I hope you're well. I'm Callum, I run Repair Wins, and in the video today I'm going to be attempting to fix something a bit different. I say different every single time, but this time it really is different. It's a kid's toy. My mother bought this for someone in the family who's obviously very young. She got it at a boot sale, it only cost a few pounds, and the person who sold it to her neglected to tell her that there's some slight I say slight corrosion in the battery compartment, and if I actually bring up the main sort of cover, oh my god, you know, that's in a really poor state. I mean, mechanically the toy spins okay, and I suppose worst case if it isn't repaired they'll still be able to use it, but wouldn't it be nice to take this thing, this old Fisher-Price Little People toy, and, you know, repair it so that it actually makes all the noises and stuff. Now, looking at the compartment, it's in, you know, a really shocking condition, but I remember seeing a video by Stez's Fix ages ago where he had a box with different battery compartments in there, and the theory is you'd be able to take them out and sort of slot them in manually and whatnot. I might do something along those lines. I might 3D print a solution, I might stick a battery inside the toy. Either way though, I'm going to stop rambling, I'm going to stick the thing on the desk, we'll take a closer look at it, and then we'll get it taken apart.
So what are we working with here? To be honest, I think the main fault is just all of the corrosion in the battery compartment. I made a video recently where I fixed a Game Boy that had really major corrosion. And a Game Boy is obviously a lot more complex than a Fisher-Price toy from 2003. So, you know, fingers crossed this thing can actually be repaired. It might be a case that the power switch needs to be replaced, as well as sort of all the battery compartments and whatnot. But I think the smartest thing to do would just be to remove the visible screws that are on the bottom, and then once they're out, hopefully the cover will come off and we can see the damage a bit more closely. It's going to be quite a pain to film this, but I've stood one of these Hakko Omni vices beneath the toy, and obviously the Ferris wheel part is holding it off the desk, so as long as I'm sort of careful not to jolt it around too much, I should be able to take it apart and film the process. There we are then, the screws are removed. The question is, how difficult is it going to be to take the bottom cover off? I've gone and grabbed myself a metal pry tool, and this thing came and it was practically blunt, so I had to take a file to it and make it a slightly sharper point. So now that I've done that, it can actually be used. Oh, this is actually looking fairly simple. Oh god, I just said the S word. Simple. Right, come on then, I've jinxed myself now. Let's carry on going around. Oh, did you hear that pop? I'm going to keep peeling. Oh, it's just tape. Alright, there's just some tape underneath here, look, that we're sort of peeled up on. Oh, good. The battery compartment is isolated from the rest of the toy, so I'd best bring this across a bit, but we can see that the power switch will probably be okay. And actually, the tops of the terminals don't look too bad either. I can see that the battery compartment is one entity that's completely separate, and because this is evidently a fairly high quality toy, it's all nice and sort of injection molded, and there's no open gaps or whatever that corrosion could have. I mean, I say corrosion flows, obviously that's not the reality, but battery acid can leak, and if the battery acid had leaked and gotten all over this board, chances of fixing it would have been much slimmer. I've zoomed the camera down a bit. I think all I'm going to do is use sort of my metal pry tool to try and straighten these things out. The idea being that when they're straightened out, I'll be able to push them through the housing. I'm going to switch my soldering iron on so I can desolder these two. I've got my soldering iron switched on, it's set to 360 degrees Celsius. I could just cut the wires instead of desoldering them, but because the wires are actually in okay condition, I'd like to reuse them, and obviously if I'm going to reuse them, then I'm going to need to make sure they're desoldered. And because the wires are desoldered, it means I should be able to fold this one up, which I've already done, and then this one as well. Only I've realised I'm going to need some solder wick, and the idea of solder wick, I mean, clues in the name, it wicks away the solder. So I'm just going to put this on here, and we're going to slurp up basically the old solder that's on there, so that way we've not got this big thick sort of you know, sort of plate that won't actually be able to go through. Right, so we're not interested in preserving the tab, we're just interested in preserving the housing. I'm happy with the progress that's been made so far. Off camera I just took a cotton bud and sort of cleaned up the area, and now that the area is a bit cleaner, I'm going to try and bend this tab into the position I want it, and I bought them in here, so I may as well use them. I'm just going to grab the pliers and I'm going to straighten it out, and I want to make sure that all four of them are as straight as they can be, so I've got the best chance of pushing them through the battery compartment without damaging it. As for actually removing the battery compartments, I'm thinking I might grab the pliers, sort of clamp down on the tabs, and then try pushing the tabs through. What I've just done is sort of try to break them free a little bit from the other side, but they just weren't budging, unfortunately. Lovely, and now I'll switch over to the other side, so you can see what I've done there, right? I've pushed these through on this end, and then on that end I'm going to try and do the same thing. This is why it's really helpful to have a really good pair of pliers as well. You can use a cheap, nasty pair, and you won't be able to do anything with them. They won't have the right grip strength and so on. Right, okay, I should be able to pull these all the way through now. So let's flip this thing around. And yeah, that's all right, that is. If I can just sort of get beneath it, pry against the housing. What I really want to do is sort of grab here and pull it. Oh, wow, talk about wear. Right, I'm going to do something I shouldn't. I'm going to grab the spring and I'm going to try and pull that. Oh, that has worked though. Lovely, and then we can do the one above. So that's quite simple, and then the really tricky one is going to be the last one that's sort of embedded in there. They don't look too bad from this side, but if I spin them around, you can see that the condition's really poor. I've obviously ruined the spring on one of them. Clearly these aren't going to be reusable. If we can't reuse those terminals, then what's the next step? I think the next step is completely unrelated. I'm going to test the power switch. And in order to test it, we're going to use everybody's favourite tool, the humble multimeter, the tool that for some reason you aren't taught how to use in school, even though everyone would benefit from knowing how to use one. Measure the voltage on your car battery. You can test if the batteries in your TV remote are broken, or if it's the remote itself that's broken. You can test switches with them. If you're doing sort of the odd bit of electrical work, it can help make sure that sort of things are safe and that they're isolated. Anyway then, what I'm going to do is take some tweezers and just pick away at the glue that's in between these contacts. I want to be able to actually measure them to make sure the switch is working okay. All I've got to do is put the multimeter into continuity mode. I'm going to touch the two probes together, and they aren't beeping. I don't know what position the switch is in, but that's okay. Yeah, if I flick the switch into the other position, it should now beep. Right, good. So I've put it into the position that I think it should be beeping in. And to be fair, it's not actually beeping. Occasionally it gives me a resistance reading of sort of 70 ohms and whatnot, but I think this switch is going to want to have to get looked at as well. Right, it is beeping now, 15 ohms, 43 ohms, 23 ohms, and so on. I'm going to unscrew it. I'm going to spray some contact cleaner in there. I'm going to move it back and forth a few times, and then hopefully the switch should just start working as it should. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but if you look closely, you know, sort of where my fingers are, you can see there's corrosion on the outside of the switch. I actually think the inside of it will be okay, and it's just sort of dust, dirt, grime, and the fact that it's 23 years old, that it's not working properly. That is actually flowing a lot more freely, and I've watched the rust basically evaporate. Right, okay, that's all I'm going to do for today. Alright then, the contact cleaner has evaporated and the smell is obviously gone as well. So I'm going to put my multimeter back into continuity mode, and I'm hoping now that the switch gives us a lower resistance reading, because if you remember before, it was reading anywhere between sort of 70 to 50 ohms, and for a switch you basically want 0. So I'll just bring the probes in, set the switch down in place, and then we'll test. Right, so that's reading 2 ohms now. 2 ohms. Right, I'll switch it into the off position, where obviously we shouldn't get a reading. I'll set it back to the on position. And 2 ohms, absolutely perfect. So now that we know that's working, I'm going to screw it down into place, and that's one of 2 problems solved on this toy. As for the battery terminals, I've decided to just buy these because I can get 10 pairs for £3.80. And what's better is that they actually come from a British seller, so located in Edinburgh, and the postage is free. Now, obviously, 2 of the 4 terminals are basically joined together, but that doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tiny blob of solder in the corner, and just link them together with a bit of wire. I've got loads and loads and loads of solder, loads of spare wire, and it's going to keep the cost of the repair down. Good news, the battery terminals have arrived. You can see here I've got a flat one, and here I've got a springy one. I've got 10 of each, and obviously the plan is to get them installed into the toy. Now that they're twisted up, I can add some fresh solder. So I've got a green spool of it, and it's actually lead-free. A lot of people prefer using lead-based solder, but if you're doing a simple job like this, the lead-free stuff is absolutely fine. What I need to do then is put the battery contacts in. So these have actually got the little sort of bits sticking out the top for wire to go through. So the first two should be fairly simple, because all I need to do is put this in here, slide it to the top, and as long as I line it up, it should just go through the gap. And then you can see the top of it is sticking out over here. The problem is, as soon as I let go, it just falls straight out. So if I get a bit of electrical tape and I just sort of push the contact through, stick the tape on to hold it down, I can then solder this to the top of it. Another method you can use is to use blue tack. There you are then, you can see that terminal set in place. So I'm going to switch my soldering iron back on. I've got it set to 365 degrees, and we can just use it to stick this wire to the terminal. If I bring you nice and close, you can see it's soldered on securely. Fingers crossed this wire running over the back isn't going to cause any problems. Alright, I've done the same thing with that terminal. I've just cut some electrical tape off and stuck it to the back of the terminal. All I've got to do is just solder it down, so same as last time. My hands are a bit shaky today, I don't know why, but just one of those, I guess. That's soldered on. The trickier ones are going to be the ones in the middle, because putting one here and putting one there is obviously really easy. But the thing is, if you remember, the original terminals was sort of a double one here, and then a double one there. And so the way that I'm going to get around that is by putting this here, and then getting this one, putting it in there, and then I'm going to have to put a tiny run of wire from here to here. That'll connect the two of those together, and then I'll pretty much do the same thing here and there, connect those two together, and then this should be completed just like the original part. The first thing I'm going to do is just put some solder at the top of each point, and I am going to do this directly on the desk. I mean, what use is a second-hand reclaimed desk if you don't occasionally have the opportunity to damage it? That should do the job. I wanted something fairly sturdy instead of just typical wire, so I've decided to use the legs from some diodes. I have loads of these diodes spare, and the vast majority of the time you bend the legs all the way inwards and put them through the PCB, and the end bit just ends up getting cut off and thrown in the bin anyway. So I just need to measure 15 centimeters, tin each end, snip it off, and then I can solder it onto there. I've got two 15mm long legs, and then the diode is obviously still absolutely fine to reuse. All I need to do is tin each side, so I've put the leg into a jig. The soldering iron is going to heat back up, fresh solder is going to go on each end, and then that way there's no guesswork at how far apart these need to be. I can just hold this up, solder it down, hold that up, solder it down, and fingers crossed that's all I've got to do. The two of those are soldered, that might just work. I've shifted it down to my desk just to sort of finish it up, but honestly, I think this will work. It's actually looking really quite good. They're complete, they're not absolutely perfect. You can see this one's lifted up ever so slightly, but that's probably a good thing actually, because it's going to make sure it's held in there more firmly. Either way, it's time to get them installed and then test the thing. So there's a spring there, meaning I want this one to go in here. So let's see, number one, does it fit? Wow, wow, that actually fits really well. And then we'll do the neighbouring one, which goes there as well. Right, there is one potential issue I can see, and that is that the bar is sticking out over the top. Can I get around that by just squeezing this down a bit more? Do you know what? I don't think that side's going to be a problem. And then as for this side, no, that's not going to be a problem at all. I'm actually going to go and grab the lid quickly just to see if this closes, but I'm 99% sure that's going to be fine. Hehe, it closes up. Good stuff. I'm going to install some batteries and let's see if this thing works. So there's your first one. There's your second one. There's your third one. Lid is installed, I'll hold it down for now. This switch should turn it on. And it is on, nothing's happening. If I push this button. Oh, right. Yeah, that's right, I'm laughing as well. And then we've got these buttons. Oh, they don't do anything. Oh. Oh, right, check that out. God. Oh, isn't that lovely? Can I spin it backwards? Too right, I can. Do you know, I'm really pleased with that. That's a very honest repair, you know? There isn't a huge amount left to do now then. I just need to put this piece in, which is going to be really simple. Just a case of lifting this up, lining the piece up, setting it down, and then there was the other piece that went in the front. So if I hold everything where it is, that goes like that. You can sort of hold this open, drop the piece in. Right, that's down as well. I'll just hold the back piece in place and then make sure that that clicks the way I expect it to. Now that that's done, I can shimmy this out of the way because I have to take these two screws out of here, if you remember, and then we can screw this thing back together. I'll just make sure to fold these wires down and out of the way, and then I can push the back cover on. So I guess the first one I'll do is the one in this very corner. I'll do one here just to help hold the Ferris wheel on. See the gap closing? Brilliant, and I can do one more down here. The screws are all in, so it's time to put the T7000 on. What you want to do is just fill the tracks without getting any on the contact point. It's quite fiddly work, but I'd rather have something that looks a little bit messy, that's going to last, than something that looks, well, this never looks perfect anyway, but I think you know where I was going with that one. If you're using this stuff, by the way, make sure you have somewhere to wipe away the excess. Make sure that everything's in the position that you want it in, because when this T7000 is set, it's going to be quite hard to remove it. I've put the screw into the battery compartment. The T7000 is sat in there and it's drying. So with that, the project's complete. There you have it then. That concludes this saga. Although, to be honest, it hasn't really been a saga because I've actually quite enjoyed doing this one. Nice to work on something a bit different. You know, typically I'm working on laptops or computers. I mean, beside me there's a dehumidifier that doesn't work. I've got an Xbox 360 that I'm modifying. That's going to end up being a video in the near future. But the point is, it's nice to work on something a bit different, and I know this video is going to be a little bit shorter than my typical sort of 20 to 30 minute affair, which means obviously it's going to be a bit easier for me to edit. That'll be nice, as I've got quite a lot of different tasks going on, both related to work, not related to work, related to the non-profit. Oh god, getting a bit worn down, to be honest, but you just have to sort of keep fighting through, don't you? These things come and go. It's sort of, you know, your life goes like this. It's like the output on an oscilloscope. Anyway, if you found the video useful, if you enjoyed it, if I taught you a new technique, then feel free to just, you know, leave a like. Helps me out. It pretty much makes sure that YouTube shows a video to more people. I mean, it's not going to compel them to watch it, but the more people that see it, the more people click, the more people that watch. Subscribers gained, repair message spreads further. That's what we're really here to do. We're trying to get as many people to repair as many devices as possible, keep stuff in use for as long as possible. Anyway then, if you really did enjoy the video, or you want to see more of what I'm doing here, then hit the subscribe button. I mean, obviously that's gonna, I think I'm at 920, something like that at the moment. It'd be great to cross 1,000 by August, because August is when I set the channel up. That would be really nice. And obviously you're going to see the new stuff that I make as and when I make it. There's an Xbox 360. I'm doing a lot of modding to that. I'm really looking forward to releasing the video, just waiting on the parts. I've got one other device, although it slips my mind. And so to stop the outro from being 3 hours long, I think I'm just going to fairly quickly end it there. So hope you enjoyed the video, like I say. Take care for now. I'll see you in the next one, and goodbye.